Hi, I'm Daulat Taimagambet, and I'm the host of the Principles of Economics course. The purpose of today's lecture is to help you learn the economist's way of thinking. Economists try to address their subject with a scientist's objectivity. Like all scientists, they make assumptions that can simplify the complex world and make it easier to understand. Then economists can act as policy advisors in order to improve the world. For example, to study the effects of international trade, we might assume that the world consists of only two countries, and that each country produces only two goods. In reality, there are many countries, each of which produces thousands of different types of goods and services. But by considering a world with only two countries and two goods, we can focus our thinking on the essence of the problem. Once we understand the international trade in this simplified world, we are in a better position to understand international trade in the more complex world in which we live. The economy consists of millions of people engaged in many activities like buying, selling, working, and manufacturing. To understand how the economy works, we must find some way to simplify our thinking about all these activities. We need a model that explains how the economy is organized and how participants in the economy interact with one another. Economists use models to study economic issues. Their models mostly consist of diagrams and equations. But before we start, I want you to explain some key terms. Factors of production are the inputs needed for the creation of a good or service, which is output. The factors of production include labor, land, and capital. Remember this, labor, land, and capital. It is important. Labor is our workforce, land is natural resources, and capital are buildings and machines that are used in the production process. So, today we will study two simple economic models. Let's start with the first one. This figure presents a visual model of the economy called the circular flow of diagram. You can pause the video for a minute and carefully analyze the diagram. In this model, the economy is simplified to include only two types of decision makers: firms and households. Firms produce goods and services using inputs. Households own the factors of production and consume all the goods and services that the firm produces. Households and firms interact in two types of markets. At the top of the diagram, we have market for goods and services. In this market, households are buyers and firms are sellers. In particular, households buy the output of goods and services that the firm produces. In the markets for the factors of production, which is at the bottom of the diagram, households are sellers and firms are buyers. In this market, households provide the inputs that firms use to produce goods and services. The circular flow diagram offers a simple way of organizing economic transactions that occur between households and firms in the economy. The two loops of the diagram, green and red lines, are different but related. The inner loop represents the flow of inputs and outputs. The households sell the use of their labor, land, and capital to the firms in the markets for the factors of production. The firms then use these factors to produce goods and services, which in turn are sold to households in the markets for goods and services. The outer loop of the diagram represents the corresponding flow of money. The households spend money to buy goods and services from the firms. The firms use some of the revenue from these sales to pay for the inputs, such as wages of their workers. What is left is the profit of the firm, who are themselves the members of the households. So this flow repeats again and again, and the diagram is a very simple model of the economy. A more complex model would include the roles of government and international trade. Second model is called the production possibilities frontier. Let's consider an economy that produces only two goods, cars and computers. Together, the car industry and the computer industry use all the economy's factors of production. The production possibilities frontier is a graph that shows the different combination of output and that the economy can produce given the available factors of production. So this figure shows this economy's production possibilities frontier, or the PPF. If the economy uses all its resources in the car industry, it produces 1,000 cars and no computers. If it uses all the resources in the computer industry, it produces 3,000 computers and no cars. The two endpoints of the curve represent these extreme possibilities. More likely, the economy divides its resources between the two industries, producing some cars and some computers. For example, at point E, it can produce 600 cars and 2,200 computers. Or by moving some of the factors of production to the car industry from computer, the company or the economy can produce 700 cars or 2,000 computers, represented by point B. Because resources are scarce, not every outcome is feasible or possible. For example, no matter how resources are allocated between the two industries, the economy cannot produce the amount of cars and computers represented by point C. Given the technology available for manufacturing cars and computers, the economy does not have enough inputs to support that level of output. With the resources it has, the economy can produce at any point on or inside the PPF curve, but it cannot produce at points outside the curve. An outcome is said to be efficient if the economy is getting all it can from the scarce resources it has available. Points on the curve represent efficient level of production. When the economy is producing at such point, say for example point A, there is no way to produce more of one good without producing less of the other. Point D represents an inefficient outcome. It is producing only 300 cars and 1,000 computers. For some reason, perhaps widespread unemployment, the economy is producing less than it could from the resources it has available. If the source of the inefficiency is eliminated, the economy can increase its production of both goods. So for example, the economy can move from point D to point A. The trade-off helps us understand one of the 10 principles of economics, the opportunity cost. The production possibilities frontier shows the opportunity cost of one good as measured in terms of the other. When society moves from point A to point B, it gives up 200 computers to get 100 additional cars. That is, at point A, the opportunity cost of 100 cars is 200 computers. But put another way, the opportunity cost of each car is 2 computers. Notice that the opportunity cost of a car equals the slope of the PPF curve. The slope of a line is the ratio of the vertical change and the horizontal change between 2 points on the line. So the opportunity cost of a car in terms of the number of computers is not constant in this economy, but depends on how many cars and computers the economy is producing. This is reflected in the shape of the PPF curve. Because the curve in this figure is both outward, the opportunity cost of a car is highest when the economy is producing many cars and less computers, such as at point E, where the frontier is steep. When the economy is producing less cars and many computers, such as at point F, the frontier is flatter, and the opportunity cost of a car is lower. Economists believe that the PPF often have this boat-out shape. When the economy is using most of its resources to make computers, the resources best suited to car production, such as skilled auto workers, are being used in the computer industry. Because these workers probably aren't very good at making computers, increasing car production by 1 unit will cause only a slight reduction in the number of computers. That's why at point F, the opportunity cost of a car in terms of computers is small, and the frontier is relatively flat. By contrast, when the economy is using most of its resources to make cars, such as at point E, the resources best suited to making cars are already at work in the car industry. Producing an additional car means moving some of the best computer technicians out of the computer industry and turning them into auto workers. As a result, producing an additional car requires a substantial loss of computer output. The opportunity cost of a car is high and the frontier is steep. The production possibilities frontier shows the trade-off between the outputs of different goods at a given time, but the trade-off can change over time. For example, suppose a technological advance in the computer industry raises the number of computers that a worker can produce per week. The advance expands society's set of opportunities. For any given number of cars, the economy can now make more computers. If the economy doesn't produce any computers, it can still produce 1,000 cars. So one endpoint of the curve stays the same. But if the economy devotes some of its resources to the computer industry, it will produce more computers from those resources. As a result, the curve shifts outward. This figure illustrates what happens when the economy grows. Society can move production from point on the old frontier to the point on the new frontier. Which point it chooses depends on its preferences for the two goods. In this example, society moves from point A to point G, enjoying more computers and more cars. The production possibilities frontier simplifies a complex economy to highlight some basic but powerful ideas such as scarcity, efficiency, trade-offs, opportunity cost, and economic growth. As you study economics, these ideas will come up in different forms. The production possibilities frontier offers one simple way of thinking about them. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening to the second lecture of the Principles of Economics course. And if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message. Good luck and see you soon.